Now we'll go to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Perry. Thanks for your patience. Gentleman's recognized for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the committee for allowing me the opportunity to testify. I want to begin by saying that I'm here in support of a study that includes a traditional force design, force development model. I want to say that everybody must sacrifice, and the reserve component is no different in that regard. But I've asked what's driving this plan because I can't seem to get the facts, and what I see doesn't add up. The theme keeps changing. It started out with the cost, and then it was Guard, Reserve, their readiness is not where it is. They're not available. They don't do, then it changed to they don't do enough collective training. Finally, it was we don't have enough aircraft to do the mission, and they call it stacking, where the aircraft are and the mission set. But I can't get the information on that either. Regarding cost, we say we can't afford the R&D and replacement of the OH-58D. A 64 Echo model costs between $25 and $30 million. Yet an OH-58D costs $7.5 million, including the mass-mounted sight. I understand it's a legacy aircraft and we might want to get rid of it, but we have a platform readily available right now flown by the Special Operations Forces, which is the AH-6 or the MH-6, which is a fabulous aircraft. The plan never mentions the cost of retraining everyone currently involved in flying and maintaining the AH-64. It does not validate the need for more UH-60s in the reserve component, and it does not adequately address increased cost of the UH-72 as the primary trainer. Regarding readiness, that we're not ready. The Guard flew more FY-12 H-64 hours in CONUS than any other units in the Army. The flying hour and experience level in the Guard, this is where the experience is, Mr. Chairman. The Guard pilots have 2 to 3 times more hours in experience than their active duty component. It's not a dig on the active component. It's just how it is. When people leave the active component, they come to the Guard. If you really want the metric, look at the Class A accidents in the AH-64 of the last year and where they occurred and why they occurred. We progressed more aviators. We progressed 60 aviators to RL1 in 2 years, not using any additional money. And I would ask, why are we now making reserve component units look different than active unit components? It's not doctrinally correct. Availability. We've mobilized 12 battalions and 4 companies in deployments, and we've answered every single request that has been asked. And I would also say this regarding the AH-64 as a reconnaissance platform. If you have to get it to theater, and this is coming from active component, you cannot get it there in a C-17 because it does not land in non-permissive environments. If you can't get the airframe to the fight, what does it matter what the airframe is? You know, you can buy 5 or 6 MH-6s for the cost of one of 64, and you can get it to the fight, which is important. Regarding collective training, that we don't do collective training, I can give you a list, a number of instances, but right off the bat, training with Special Operation Forces Group on active duty bases, joint live fire exercises, air-ground integration, monthly JTAC training. I would ask this, why are we requiring battalion-level collective training for employment when on employment you use a scout weapons team? And I would also say, if you just Google this or go by AKO, the guidance memo for a particular ARB under a certain cab shows that active component ARBs are not training at company level either, and they are focusing on air weapons training proficiency, and that's open source. Regarding mission accomplishments and stacking, I was in a meeting a couple weeks ago, and I was told we don't have enough aircraft to do it, and it was about basing. I said, fine, I agree if that's the case. Show me the plan. We asked last Thursday, what is the plan? What is the requirement? We can't get it. If we can't get it, I think it raises some doubt. And I would also say there's a U.S. Army War College study that says that ARI, the Aviation Restructure Initiative, is resource-driven, not mission-driven. And I would hearken back to a time where we had 58 Sherman and M60 tanks in a unit, and because of capability, we went down to 29 tanks. Where the E-model Apache is wildly capable. I know you're going to cut me off, sir, and I appreciate that. If you remember anything else from this briefing, remember this. We have not been given sufficient facts to support this decision. And I thank you, and I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. Lots of information. If gentlemen would indulge, I think the gentleman from Florida has a question.
I just want to thank you for bringing this forward. This is one of the issues that we've been having as it relates to the restructuring, particularly as it relates to the Army National Guard Aviation Unit. You know, my son's an Army aviator in the National Guard, and I think he gets as much or more flight time than his active duty brother. And they're actually, I know, training live fire and everything else this summer for an extended period of time to do all those things that Big Army's saying that they're not capable of doing. Plus, that's ignoring the state mission that they have that is hugely important to states like Florida as it relates to, you know, the plan is to reduce the number of UH-60s in Florida. And you go, how does that work in reality when the Florida Army Aviation Unit has been deployed multiple times into Iraq and Afghanistan, but also into Europe to support that mission? It's amazing that we would cut that resource, and I appreciate your comments in regards to that.
Well, I would just hope, again, that we would follow the paradigm of figuring out what the mission is and then figuring out what the force would look like. This is not following that paradigm that has been followed time and time again.
If you look at, remember, the Army first talked about taking Lakotas away from the National Guard and use those as a training bird at Rucker, and it would have eliminated that whole vast training experience that you currently have at Rucker, because they have never flown a Lakota, and they're not durable enough to actually be in a training mission. Because when my son was learning at Rucker, I mean, they pretty well abused those aircraft, and that airframe is not capable of doing that. So I want to thank.
I don't know about I wouldn't say it's not necessarily not capable, but it's a two-engine aircraft. The cost is not addressed in this. The OH-58, the TH-67, the Jet Ranger is a highly prolific aircraft.
What they were telling us, and those that I know that are extremely good pilots were saying that the reason they're not as durable is because they say, well, you don't have to do the type of training with it, but if you did, the actual they'd be replacing skids daily.
Exactly, and the Lakota having to land with the engine off because you only have one in a 58. The training that you get from that lasts for the rest of your life,
right?
It's immeasurable. And I would also say this, with all due respect, when we lose this talent pool, which is what we're talking about, talent management, you can run a new aviator through Fort Rucker once a year. You know, every year you can get a whole crop of new ones, but the proficiency level that you lose from a 4,000 or 5,000 hour aviator is what you don't get. Yes, you have an aviator with 190, 250 hours, but when you're in combat, that 4,500 hours is really what makes the difference, and that will be gone, and you cannot get that quickly. You cannot get that quickly. It takes time and experience, and that's what we're throwing away. There's no operational depth in this plan. And so I would just say, let's study it, let's take a look at it, and let's use the method that's been used time and time again, as opposed to this just quick reaction to a budgetary problem, which I understand the considerations, but I think this needs further review.
And my time's expired. I yield back. Thank you so much.
Appreciate, again, testimony of the gentleman and the issues he raised.